our eighth and for this semester last seminar of the I-LanD seminar series. I'm very happy to, for our last seminar, which is entitled PON and Innovative Research in English Language Studies. And the seminar will be hosted by Katherine Russo. I'm sure many of you will know either from L'Orientale or from elsewhere. So I leave the floor to Katherine. Thank you for the seminar, for hosting the seminar. Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm just going to introduce a bit the topic of this seminar. As some of you might not know what PON stands for, today we will discuss and speakers will present some projects that are located within the National Operational Programme, which is also known as PON. In recent years, the Italian Ministry for University and Research has been pushing for the creation of a strong link between research and the industrial sector. This can also be discussed and from a critical discourse analysis point of view, we could discuss it in terms critically, if you like. But according to this program, universities must become ecosystems, or for instance, sometimes we find the term incubators for research projects that are projected into a dimension of professional specialization. And there was a program, a very strong investment already between the years 2014-2020, in which there were several research grants for tenure track researchers and also PhD projects, which were defined as innovative industrial projects and focused especially on this link between universities and the industrial sector. We are indeed getting used to different positive semantic prosodies that are related to the future and innovation. So more and more there are boosters or related to what research should do. And this push became even stronger in 2021 when the National Operational Programme was influenced by and got many funds from the National Recovery and Resilience Plan, also known as PNRR, and with a specific focus on the ecological and digital transition. This was a plan, this new plan, I should say, invested strongly in this ambition, what is called the European ambition of becoming a leader in, for instance, ecological transition and digital transition, and to relaunch Europe in a way. And we also heard one of the programs is the Next Generation EU. So you see how, as in metaphors related to climate change, we see a lot of emphasis placed on the future. And also, so it's related to European funds, European policies that want to create inclusive responses to the current crisis, so the COVID-19 crisis, and relaunch the economy, give a push to the economy, but not only pushing the economy, but making it green, digital, and also we often hear slogans about resilience. So this term resilience, which has become more and more widespread. And so a new idea of how we should create, for instance, how we should develop and so on. So terms that had been in the air, that have been used before already with the Agenda 2030 and so on, about the creation of a circular economy, for instance, but that have become, let's say, central to funding. And as a matter of fact, this new PON has two main objectives. And so this will be my first question for our speakers, who have all been funded by PON, and we're very happy, obviously, about that, actually research has become central, a crucial element, has been identified as a crucial element by the European Union to support the development and dissemination of skills, of the new labour market, and for social and economic cohesion. So it's been identified. University research has been identified as a fundamental element to get out of this crisis, the COVID crisis, and this is not to be taken for granted. So in order to overcome these COVID-19, this program has asked researchers to think about two main objectives, and I would like our speakers to tell us how their research respond to one or two of these objectives. So the first objective is to promote research on innovation, digital and enabling technologies, and at the same time support the enhancement of human capital as a determining factor for the development of research and innovation. So mainly related to innovation, digital and enabling technologies. And the second was to enhance the human capital to be engaged on topics related to the ecosystem, biodiversity, the reduction of the impacts of climate change, and the promotion of sustainable development. So I would like to give the floor to speakers, and I will introduce our first speaker. And I know that it is a custom of I-LanD to actually go by the alphabetical order. And so our first speaker is our youngest speaker, Arianna del Gaudio, who is a first-year PhD student in English Language and Translation Studies at the Department of Literary Linguistic and Comparative Studies of the University of Naples L'Orientale. She holds a master's degree in European and American languages and literatures from the University of Naples L'Orientale, in which she discussed translation of Caribbean English varieties. And her current research interests, her fields are corpus-based critical discourse analysis, with a specific focus on corporate discourse and climate change. So I give the floor to Arianna, and please tell us about your research.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Emilio and Professor Balirano, for organizing this very interesting seminar. So I get straight to the point, and my research meets the goals of the Action 4.5 that, as Professor Russo was saying, aims at enhancing students and human capitals to engage PhD programs concerning green topics. So the reduction of climate change impacts and everything related to environmental issues. So in particular, my research focuses on the analysis of corporate discourse regarding climate change in order to investigate how selected companies from different cultural contexts frame this phenomenon and communicate achievements and their missions to tackle the climate crisis within their business strategy. Well, I decided to focus on corporate discourse, so to this field, because of the evidence of the anthropogenic causes of climate change. And for this reason, businesses and the industry sector in general has come under a lot of pressure to put the care for planet and sustainability on their agenda, and started to produce mainly through written communication, written discourses around climate action and environmental sustainability, also to create a kind of positive image of themselves and improve their legitimacy. But to my knowledge, this still happens just with companies that have a strong social but still negative environmental impact due to the exploitation, for instance, of sources such as energy or water that in many ways contribute to the degradation of our planet. So my research is set within the food and beverage industry. And in these studies, I'm taking into account large companies of countries where actually English is the first language, and countries where English is commonly used as second language for social life and in government. With the aim to investigate convergences and divergences in communication strategies, and trying to focus on the dichotomy between developed versus emerging markets and global north versus global south companies, and on the role of mainly written communication of specific genres. So, as the topic of this seminar suggests, my research is part of the National Operational Program on Research and Innovation, and this kind of research is being carried out with the support and the cooperation of the Italian leading company in the field of environmental consultancy, which is Carbon Sync. And thanks to their support, I have the chance also to take into account for my analysis the Italian picture of corporate communication about climate change. Well, few words about this company. Carbon Sync works with companies to develop for them suitable net zero climate strategy, and they are particularly keen on transparent communication. So I think that a comparative study, as in my case, could also shed light on the let's say, effectiveness of these different forms of communication to gain the attention of external audiences, but can also inspire a new communicative forms for a more transparent communication. Well, I'm focusing on these topics because green transition is essential for the growth of our country and the growth of Europe. So, along the path towards a more sustainable future, I strongly believe that English studies and humanities in general are kind of key players, as they are directly involved in intercultural communication studies. So intercultural communication studies are the basis for corporate discourse, even in those cases, as the case of my research, where the same industry, for instance, or the same product is targeted and by using the same language. So I think that this cooperation between research, university, and business in this field fully supports the green transition, with the aim also to create new jobs. New jobs, I mean, to invest in the educational, in the professional education of marketing and communication analysts, because trying to make them taking into account also socio-cultural context, different values and cultural differences. So going back to my research project, as for the material, data are retrieved from annual reports, sustainability reports, and web pages where companies disseminate information about environmental sustainability and their climate actions and achievements. I'm focusing on these different genres because if it's true that there are many different ways to tell climate change stories, I think that this could be valid also within corporate discourse. So it's crucial to consider in this case corporate social responsibility related to environmental issues as an umbrella concept, let's say. And also because I'm focusing on these genres to try to find the common voice between them, and also because I'd like to understand how the rise of the internet actually changed the way companies communicate their climate strategy. So again, the convergences and divergences between the traditional reporting way and the digital one. As for the methodology, is quite an innovative one because I'm combining corpus linguistics tools and methods with the appraisal framework of attitude and engagement. In particular, corpus linguistics in this field is still underexploited, while the appraisal framework will support me in reflecting upon the feelings and emotions of both stakeholders and lay people by examining a wide array of lexicogrammatical resources. And this would be particularly useful to explore how actually these social actors perceive climate-related risks and opportunity. Moreover, I think that the role and work of linguists and discourse analysts in this field is crucial because they're not directly, at least, committed to the corporate world and its interests. So they are able to conduct studies in a more neutral way, just, for instance, focusing on how language seems to work in this context. So I think my time is quite up, so I'm going to conclude. And it's important to deepen studies within this industry sector because Italy has a long and lasting tradition related to food and beverage industry. So also because stakeholders started to consider the link between the increase of population and the limited availability of some resources. So sustainable solutions need to be found in corporate practices that I strongly believe that first of all are discursive practices. So, and sometimes are quite far from being transparent. So to steer away greenwashing, it's important to work on qualitative studies and work on socio-cultural contexts to make companies prove that their results were responsibly achieved. So I don't know if it's quite too early to determine with certainty the social impact of my research, but I hope that my research will encourage also small and medium-sized Italian companies, also in other industry sectors, to develop mitigation strategies to tackle the climate crisis and communicate transparently in English in order to gain, again, the attention of wider external audience, but more importantly, to demonstrate a real interest in tackling climate change and supporting local community, especially in developing countries. So these are all key points in our time of crisis and are key points in the process of corporate internationalization process. So building and developing a sustainable environment, rich carbon neutrality is crucial nowadays. We are obliged to reach this in order to ensure survival for future generations. So that's enough for now. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Arianna, and thank you for also this inspiring, I think, talk in which yes, you pointed out several key important areas. Also, how as English studies scholars we can contribute. So, and I think that the next few, the next research projects are also really interested in this. Okay, so I'll give the floor now to Francesco Nacchia, who is a research fellow at the University of Naples Orientale. He holds a PhD in Euro-languages and specialized terminology from the University of Naples Partenope, where he has researched on agribusiness terminology with a specific focus on trade, wine tasting, but also innovative eating practices such as veganism and vegetarianism. His major research interests include subtitling, song and music, translation, multimodal critical discourse analysis. So, Francesco.
Yes, okay. Can you hear me? I was experiencing some trouble on my side. Can you hear me and see me properly?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So thank you for the introduction and good to see some familiar faces in the crowd. I will skip the technical part because you covered that enough. So both Katherine and Arianna, and thanks for inviting me, of course, Emilio, Professor Balirano, and Professor Russo. I'll try to give you a shallow overview of my research project, which is called something like Specialized Languages of Wine and Ecology, with some translational and terminological, with a focus on translation and terminological aspects in corporate communication. And so I guess the best way to do this is to approach this in a 10-minute presentation without slides, is to, to discuss the key concepts by starting from the keywords in my title. So specialized languages. I know some of you might already be familiar with this concept, but some might not. So specialized languages are languages which serve the purpose of a specific field of knowledge, whether technical or scientific, and which are characterized by not only terminology, so not only by lexical aspects, but by syntactic aspects and textual aspects as well. So the very core of specialized languages are terminologies. So specialized terminology is characterized by univocity, which is this link between a concept and a term, which there might be a perfect match, okay, between a concept and a term in order to rule out any possible ambiguity. However, this univocity sometimes is extended and reversed in promotional contexts in order, to create glamorous language that appeals to potential consumers. And this is true of the language of wine, of course. Then the second feature is, so there might be some syntactic aspects which distinguish the specialized language from general language. For example, some patterns and structures might be preferred in a specialized community. And then textual aspects as well, because some text types and genres are typical of specialized discourse communities. So these concepts, of course, in turn, can be applied to the language of wine, which is the field of knowledge I specialize in. And so in terms of terminology, the language of wine is comprised of two main dimensions, a technical one and a creative one. The technical one includes words for organoleptic characteristics, tools, procedures, grip varieties, and all the technical factors of that domain. And the creative one, which includes words for olfactory, visual, and tactile sensations. And it is this latter which comes with some risks and which gives trouble to experts and non-experts, of course, because it is constantly enriched with words coming from other domains. And another distinguishing trait of the language of wine in terms of terminological aspects is the use of the metaphor, not just as a figure of speech, but as an integral part of the language of wine. So it is not just, an embellishing flourish, a figure of speech and such. It is an integral part of it. So it is taught on day one in wine language courses. An example of this is, for example, nose. Okay, so we are all pretty familiar with the meaning of nose in general language, which is the organ we use for, breathing and smelling odors. Okay, so whereas in the language of wine, it denotes the olfactory sensations. So you might hear something like, the nose is, fruity, herbaceous, and elegant. It is an instance of metonymization. So metonyms and metaphors are integral to the language of wine. And this is maybe the biggest distinguishing trait of the language of wine. Then syntactic aspects, characterizing syntactic aspects. Simple sentences, the present simple is preferred to other complex tenses. The voice, active voice is preferred. And another distinguishing trait is the use of the wine as the subject. So you won't read something like, I think this wine is. No, you will read most commonly, the wine is blah, 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 blah. So the wine as a person, so as the subject in most wine tasting notes. And then the textual aspects, because the wine discourse community has its own textual genre, which is the wine tasting note, just the one you are used to reading on the back of the bottles and on the internet, of course, and corporate websites, which includes three main parts. The first one is gives information about the production process. The second one presents the tasting event itself. And the third one includes information for future consumption and storage. So these are the three main distinguishing traits of the language of wine. And the third keyword is ecology, of course. So why ecology and wine together? Because we know that over the last few years, there has been this focus on sustainability in agricultural processes, and wine has been affected all the same. And what happened is that three main wine types, sustainable wine types, emerged. Organic wines, biodynamic wines, and natural wines, which at first glance might all seem the same. So they might seem, they're not easily discernible, and they might create confusion to the potential consumer. And actually, they have only one thing in common. They come from organic grapes, but the procedures are completely different, and it is not certified and specified by any regulation apart from organic wines, where it is said that the grape for organic wines should be organic. The rest of the process is not taken into account. So it's not the business, okay, of the European Union. And no regulation exists to date for biodynamic wines and natural wines. And so for my project, I'm working hand in hand with a winery which specializes in the production of natural wines, which is Podere Venere Vecchio, based in Benevento, which specializes in natural wines. And the utmost aim of my project is creating a bilingual glossary which might benefit both consumers in their purchase choices. So in order to safeguard the consumer and know that you're buying something which is, for example, without the addition of sulfites, fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, etc., because organic wines might contain up to 40 additives. So they're not really organic wines. In fact, some winemakers are complaining about the fact that this is not really organic wine, and avoid, putting the quality label of the European Union, because it might be detrimental. And so creating a bilingual glossary so to benefit consumers and winemakers as well, producing real natural wines without additives, and contributing to wine education and sustainability practices in general. And to conclude, what I'd like to do is also, working with Raffaello from Podere Venere Vecchio is, participating in the drawing of a product specification for natural wines to be taken through European Union. It might be, something I'd like to do, and I hope I can do in the future. And that was it.
Okay, thank you, Francesco. And I can already see some common threads with Arianna's talk, and I would like to now introduce Marina Niceforo, who is a research fellow in English language and translation at the University of Naples L'Orientale. She holds a PhD in European languages and specialized terminology from the University of Naples Partenopeo. Her major research interests include environmental discourse analysis, critical discourse studies, ESP terminology, and cultural translation. And she has also related to some of the objectives of PON her monograph titled The Terminology of Marine Pollution by Plastics and Microplastics. And she's currently working on corporate greenwashing and sustainability and eco-anxiety on social media. So please, Marina, tell us about your research for PON.
Thank you, Katherine, for introducing me, and thank you to my colleagues and to Emilio and Professor Balirano for inviting me. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to speak about my research, since, as you said, I've been dealing with the language of sustainability with environmental discourses since they were not so widespread as they are now. And actually, my areas of research in the PON project are smart and sustainable industry, energy and environment, health, food and quality of life, but also agri-food, green industry, smart communities. So you can see that, like Francesco and Arianna said, it's really an intricate field in which various disciplines and various economic sectors, economic and social sectors interact. And so this is one of the, to answer your question, this is one, I think it's one of the new approaches in our PON research types. And speaking of the innovation, I think it's probably one of the first concrete opportunities to implement multidisciplinarity and to, strengthen the relationship between universities and businesses. So one of the aims of our research projects in particular would be to collaborate, to spend a research period within some local companies. In my case, I have signed a partnership agreement with Caffè Motta, a coffee company in Salerno, a company that stands out in Campania for its commitment to sustainability. So because our project involves working in cooperation with these companies, we will have the opportunity actually to see what their needs are and to be able to respond accordingly. So maybe also from a didactic point of view and from the point of view of how we can educate future professionals who are going to work in this sense, and also to increase the availability of knowledge in general about sustainable practices. So I have many points of contact with Arianna's research in particular, because I also think that corporations and companies and businesses are now opening more and more for more or less transparent reasons, for more or less sincere reasons, but they are committing to these topics a lot more compared to the past. And from a research point of view, I think our research could help fill this gap between social and scientific disciplines in general and the humanistic fields of study, and also from a linguistic point of view, because one of our research products is a glossary of corporate sustainability. We will be able to design this glossary in which we will see what the real terminology and what the real language of corporate sustainability is. So both from above, so we can see how the technical scientific indications coming from European institutions and from our government, from the national and regional administrations, are received by companies. So, and how they themselves are transforming and these indications for their consumers, for their stakeholders. So there is also in this process there's a communicative shift. So we go from maybe an expert type of communication that comes from above, but needs to be simplified for the consumers. And this is precisely what I'm doing at the moment. So also by means of investigating advertising and marketing strategies, I can see how greenwashing takes place in corporate communications, because corporations, companies are very much looking forward to selling this image of sustainability. I mean, my aim, but I think our aim as green researchers is to also assess how sincere this commitment to sustainability is, and to verify how the communicative strategies that companies are adopting are actually affecting the perception of these topics among the public of lay people. And this brings me to the social impact of our research, because we also have a research outcome from a social point of view. In general, I think we can contribute to the popularization and dissemination of information on these topics, and to the general process of digital literacy that's very clearly specified in the National Research Plan, in the PNR, especially in southern regions, in southern Italian regions, in the post-COVID-19 period. And also this glossary in particular, I think I was asked by Caffè Motta, by the company I'm working with, to share this glossary with them, so that they can also manifest their interest into sustainability for the people, and to make the language that they're using even more known and clearer to everyone. So this glossary is not only something that I will use for my research, but I'm glad that Caffè Motta asked me to access this glossary for their advertising, for their marketing purposes. So in a certain sense, I think that there could be really a bridge thanks to our work. I hope that our work will also build this bridge between the needs of businesses, which sometimes are so detached from our understanding of business practices in general. And on the other hand, we may really try to train future professionals in this sense. I think it's not something new. Sustainability, environmental commitment, it's not something new, but since there are more and more stringent regulations on this, I think it's really the time for professionals who are going to work in these fields to learn and improve their skills in this sense. And what else can I say? I mean, in my case, I'm at the moment working on, as you said, not only corporate greenwashing, but also environmental discourses in other fields, for example, on social media, and also from a popular perspective. In this sense, I am analyzing the environmental concerns, so forms of eco-anxiety by lay people on social media, and at the same time, I'm trying to assess the existence of environment-based discrimination. So as you can see, this language, it's really, like Francesco said, is combines the terminology from many fields. So we have technical, scientific, and then environmental, but also language from terms from the general language. So I really think that it's it's one of my main interests with this research, to explore how these languages combine together, and how they contribute to the general process of advancing knowledge on sustainability and environmental protection. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Marina. I think also There's an echo. Sorry. Also, what you were saying is very interesting in terms of, you know, close discourse analysis, so qualitative discourse analysis in terms of actually, you know, taking responsibility and commitment and so on. So certainly this could have a big impact, I think, on you know, society, and also on yes, literacy, you know, learning how to read, and this goes back also to Arianna's speech, and also Francesco's, you know, this learning how to read these reports, so and so on. It could it's really important, I think. So I would like now to introduce Serena Santonocito, who is a research assistant in English language at the University of Messina. Her current research is funded by the PON project on research and innovation. And she obtained her PhD at the University of Naples Partenope by discussing a thesis entitled Same-Sex Unions in the Speeches of British and Italian PMs, a Critical Queer Perspective. Her research interests originate in gender, investigated through the broad paradigm of corpus-assisted critical discourse studies, and she's also recently incorporated the focus on digital discourse with a specific spotlight on the linguistic protocols used in artificial intelligence models. So I guess this is how she's dealing with the, you know, the two objectives of PON, but she'll tell us more about it. And she has published many articles, I should say, related to gender studies and YouTube populism and so on. So I would like her to tell us about how her current research project, funded by PON, addresses the main objectives that we've been speaking about. So digital and ecological transition.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Russo, for this kind presentation. And once again, let me thank Emilio and Professor Barilano and my friends and colleagues who are here today. I'm very happy to participate, take part in this discussion. And I will try to tell you something about how the PON project, where actually it's two people engaged in this project. It's my colleague Chiara Polli and I. We are involved in this project, whose main objective is the development of linguistic and semiotic protocols to be implemented in AI, artificial intelligence, specifically in the interpretation of text-image relationships. So first of all, let's talk about the increased use of AI, artificial intelligence. In today's digital environment, we are pervaded by multimodal texts that are mainly composed, as we know, by a mixture of modes and various semiotic resources such as written text, oral speeches, music, audiovisual clips, and so on, that together contribute to what multimodal studies define a text, namely a process and a product of selection among the multifarious options offered by different semiotic resources for meaning making. Within this digital ecosystem, there is a clear consensus at the moment of the paramount importance featured nowadays by AI. In simulating learning and problem solving, AI is endowed with generative, analytical, and procedural capabilities. And it is by virtue of such capabilities that AI models are achieving unprecedented levels of performance when learning to solve increasingly complex computational tasks, making them extremely crucial for the future development of the human society. So just with this brief introduction, I think we may understand how my PON project really relates to the digital transition we are facing at the moment. So suffice it to mention that today AI selects and ranks information shown by internet search engines, for example, the famously known SEO, It determines also medical treatments, ranks jobs applications, translates languages, calibrates social campaigns, predicts tastes and preferences, among a lot of countless tasks. However, the sophistication of AI-powered system currently faces some cognitive bias stemming mainly from human input, and some operational gaps that are derived by current inability to interpret the different multimodal semiotic resources or semantic levels. Due to the ever-evolving preponderance of AI, these flows need to be verified by human validation. So basically, it's the human brain that needs to interact with the automated analysis of such algorithm. Most importantly, they call for ethical and democratic issues, and this is actually where this research project deeply intersects with how it can make a difference in our real world. To give you just an example of what I'm talking about, I will mention the Clearview AI case. Clearview AI is a US facial recognition platform that supports private and public companies for the identification of people who break the law. The company algorithm matches face biometrics to database of more than 20 billion images indexed from the internet, including those available in social media platforms. And in May last year, so in 2021, the company had numerous legal complaints filed in, among others, Austria, France, the UK, and Italy, for violating the European privacy law, the General Data Protection Regulation. I think more or less we are all familiar with the acronym GDPR. Why so? Because of its method for documenting and collecting internet data that was deemed as raising some ethical concerns. The biggest concern depends on the fact that despite the flaws of this algorithm accuracy, the same fact that your biometrics can be matched to those of a criminal, of course, raise some potential ethical and democracy issue. So you may have also heard of the news that in March this year, so in March 2022, this case culminated with the Italian privacy regulator, the Garante della Privacy in Italian, fining Clearview AI $20 million for violating the GDPR and also urging the company to delete all the Italian records from its database. In this overview, actually, I am not going to delve into face recognition systems, but this recent news may raise the attention and the interest and may give you an idea of how much AI systems are pervading our lives, specifically in our days. And another very sad issue that I would like to highlight here is that yesterday we sadly marked 3 months from the outbreak of the war in Ukraine. And I don't know if you are aware of the fact that at the moment AI facial recognition systems are being used for the recognition of criminals and the victims. So AI is something that is actually pervading our lives, even if we may not also be aware of that. From AI, I would like now to place this project into the scholarly tradition I feel I belong to, which is the broad paradigm of critical inquiry, critical with capitalized C. So AI is initiating its fundamental role in facilitating and disseminating certain messages that users may start to perceive as commonsensical self-evidence. And this, as we know, complies with critical and multimodal perspectives. Taking major force in the success of the increased combination of different semiotic modes of communication, AI technologies represent a powerful resource for making meaning in society, and their meaning-making potential is determined by AI developers' choices, since these choices actually embody, at the moment, the AI developers' views. Indeed, these algorithms, being bottom-up data-driven, establish models that capture the most common biases diffused in our society. In particular, when creating and updating algorithms, developers prioritize some semiotic choices and associated practices over others. And this, of course, means that AI semiotic repertoires are restricted to the rules available within the algorithm environment. For this reason, AI interfaces are considered as sites of ideological legacies, perpetrating asymmetrical relationships and polarized rules. Relatedly, we can say that AI models prescribe semiotic regimes whereby the algorithm cannot escape from following the only partisan available rules. As such, AI models fruitfully fit within the critical multimodal studies, since they can be defined as semiotic artifacts that make available certain modes, tenors, and fields corresponding to developers' idea about where and how this should be used. So AI basically bears the dangerous potential of amplifying discrimination and bias at various levels, since those are present both in the AI model and in the data the algorithm is trained with. Now I will delve on some practical, some more hands-on experience, because Karen and I have worked in this project since January, and since March we have started our research period in a company that actually deals with AI models, with AI algorithm for digital PR, SEO, and sentiment analysis for governmental and private clients, that are companies basically. Then I will also touch on some current scholarly study that deal with a critically engaged and multimodal take of AI technologies. In both cases, we will see that there are gaps that we are currently trying to approach in our research project. First of all, let's talk about the company case that delves into the core of this research project by addressing problematic moments when the intertwining of different multidimensional semiotic resources, especially text and images, or different semantic levels like ambiguity or irony, reveal current inaccuracy of AI models. And our experience is that we need human validation so far in order to make reliable choices. In the case studies that we developed at Digital Trails, the company where we are doing our research period, we had to perform an automated sentiment analysis addressing the social media monitoring tool called Meltwater. The client suspected that they suffered negative brand reputation online. So we selected, together with the marketing team, topical keywords, so textual data, and fed those textual data onto the tool, which in response gave us the automated sentiment analysis. According to the results, there was no negative sentiment around our client's brand, but we needed to double check all the social media content when the keywords appeared, and finally found actually 4 instances of negative sentiment. In these 4 cases, the negative sentiment, I must confess, was not extremely overt, since actually I can make you the example of 2 Twitter users that were referring to the brand as producing problematic batches or with sad emojis. So basically, we had to intervene, our human input had to intervene in terms of establishing that it was a relationship between the text and the image that determined a negative sentiment. So actually, at the moment, a flow that is being detected at the operational level is this lack of multimodal interaction between the text and the image when the algorithm is working. Then let's briefly touch on a study that is going to be published very soon by Professor Maria Grazia Sindoni, the scientific supervisor of this research project. This study addresses gender bias and recognizes, drawing also on a 2020 UNESCO report, that female vocal assistants such as Alexa, Cortana, Siri, I think you are more or less familiar with those, or maybe you also have those on your desk. So these female vocal assistants actually embody gendered stereotypes and may also encourage the normalization of patriarchal practices. So also here you can understand how current flows in AI models need to be critically and multimodally addressed. And so here it comes, the link between society and what we can do as human sciences researchers. And both gaps, the operational and the cognitive gap, point to the limits, or in some cases, the lack of pragmatic, inferential, and sociocultural skills that limit current AI algorithms. Against this drawback, our interdisciplinary analysis can contribute to a recalibration of these current flows. In addition, the above gaps highlight ethical and democratic issues and call for a critical engagement. For this reason, the overarching objective of this project consists in the cross-contamination of multimodal discourse analysts on the one side and AI developers on the other side for the production of semiotic protocols for the development of AI models that can engage in what has been recently termed AI for social good. Of course, Chiara and I, depending on our research interests, are going to tackle this in different paths and ways. But this expression, AI for social good, is part of the scholarly discussion that departs from the awareness on the repercussions of AI in reflecting and shaping social values and power relations. And it culminates in the matching of AI models within our society goals, in particular, those related to, as we were speaking of at the beginning of the presentation, sustainable development and 2030 agenda. At the moment, since we are at an early stage of the research, current methodological constraints include the ephemeral nature of the algorithm code, which is ever changing, ever processing, the difficulty in the cross-contamination of multimodal analysts and AI developers, the few analytical and methodological tools given by the fact that machine learning systems through which the algorithm is trained are not currently able to interpret the multimodal interplay of different semiotic resources. And finally, companies' reluctance to fully display how their patented tools work. And this is quite understandable, comprehensible if you think that this is, these are economic and marketing reasons. To conclude, I want to emphasize the two overarching points of this research project that can really make a difference in our digital society. First, the reliance on the cross-contamination of disciplines so that AI adapts to social contexts and not the opposite. So if we have cognitive bias in our society, and we have, many studies have been devoted to that, we might not need to adapt to this cognitive bias, but we may pursue for a change, for an innovation in this sense. And second, the development of higher technical skills and critical awareness able to reveal the perils of deactivating critical thinking under the ambivalent force of a tech-savvy message. And of course, this is what we are trying to pursue, but we are still at the initial stage of our research project. Thank you very much for bearing with me, for the patience, and for any question and comment that you can have for improving our research.
Thank you, Serena. That was very, very interesting and challenging project. I would like, of course, I think these projects have many things in common, which and you just touched upon this in your last remarks about creating an inclusive and more sustainable society. So I think your project, deals very coherently with this aim of creating an inclusive society, but also the fact that we can contribute through critical thinking and through let's say a critical analysis of discourse, which may be corporate discourse or social media discourse, or indeed also in relation to multimodal discourse and artificial intelligence. So I would like to open the floor to questions. Are there any questions from the floor about these projects? Not yet. Oh, Antonio. Okay, Antonio Fruttaldo.
Hi, here I
Hi,
am. Sorry,
yeah.
just muted. Well, first of all, thank you so much to all of you, starting from Arianna and then moving on to Francesco, Marina, and Serena. The the project you are working on, they are quite complex. That's the thing that I would say, because starting with Arianna, the methodology that you are trying to combine together, you said something interesting that I wrote down, the fact that when it comes to the analysis of genre analysis combined with corpus linguistics applied to corporate discourse, typically there is like I don't want to say a void, but a preference in genre analysis to go to multidimensional types of approaches. So Biber and that type of approach that I'm not really fond of because it has its problems. So when you need to start from scratches when you want to combine together like the language of evaluation, corpus linguistics applied to corporate discourse. So will be quite challenging as a study. So the thing that I wanted to ask all of you, that's a question that I wanted to ask in general, was quite well, I don't want to say difficult to, but maybe just want to know the impact that you want to have with the companies that you are working with. Okay, because you have highlighted, Francesco, for instance, said, I want to create this sort of terminological dictionary. I don't want to say dictionary, but something that helps customers, but also companies in dealing with this. But I want to know a little bit more about this synergy that you have found, starting from whoever wants to start.
So shall I start?
Okay.
Okay. So as I said, my aim is, building this bilingual glossary. So promoting, of course, sustainable practices, and also help people and potential consumers distinguish the sustainable wines they're going to buy. So as I said, there are three main types, and sometimes there's confusion. They're all, people think they have mutual shared characteristics, but it is not the case, because as I said, some wines only take into account the process for growing the grapes, but the rest of the production process is not it's not considered for measurements. So you can use additives, you can use fertilizers, you can use for example the Arabic gum and sulfides and animal derived products in organic wines. So by making people aware of these differences and letting people know that you're not buying something which is 100% natural when buying an organic wine might have a positive impact on their health, of course, and maybe the way they spend their money. And the same is for winemakers, because as I said, some complain, just like the founder of Podere Bene di Vecchio, who produces only natural wines, as as outrageous, because it's saying I'm producing natural wines. They aren't, but they've got that label by the European Union, and I can't put that. And there's no label for natural wines. So they've started this this war against the organic label. And as I said, in line with together with the bilingual glossary, I'd also like to put forward this product specification for natural wines, because Raffaello from Podere Bene di Vecchio also had a say in some meetings at the European Union level.
Okay.
Also, a thing that I wanted to highlight maybe is that you talk about sustainability and so on. Typically, these are standards that companies need to achieve. So working with a language that highlights these aspects of the companies benefits also the companies, because with auditors going there and checking if they are like open with their policies and so on, this is something that benefits their how they at very end they behave from an environmental perspective. Thank you.
Yes, I think yeah, it's quite problematic, isn't it, to work and let's say be a bit critical of certain practices, no? It's so yes, it's a difficult question actually. I think that Antonio put there. Marina or
Yes,
Arianna.
if I can add my point of view, I mean, my impact on the one hand, I really want to make something valuable for the company, for Caffè Motta, but in general for all the companies. I want to convince, you know, non-academics that we're also working for them and that we can provide professionals that are suitable for them, and that we're not simply talking about this theoretically, but that we can actually do something. So this is our way of collaborating to the issue. And on the other hand, I believe in education so much that I really think that this glossary, if this glossary or any product or any outcome deriving from our research reaches the vast majority of people, so lay people, it will somehow make a difference. If you think that many people don't even know how to read the recycling labels on products, so this could be really something small but so important for people in general. Also explaining the difference between, I don't know, the types of plastics, the types of materials. It's something that it's simple for us because we're experts in this field, but it's not so, we cannot take it for granted if we consider the lay people. So I really believe that education can make a difference in this sense.
Yeah, I think it, I think it was Arianna that said something interesting, meaning that sometimes companies don't really understand what we do. That is to say, they don't, and once they understand what you said, oh, that's useful. Yes. So sometimes the question of having the opportunity to just show what we do, and you are there showing there that it's linguistics can help in specific parts of their presentation, so to speak. Okay.
Yes, Antonio, you're right. And as for my experience, I think I would like to reach some, let's say, mutual benefits between my research and to provide some benefits also to carbon sink in my case. And they're actually inspiring my work since they have mitigation projects and deforestation projects also in Africa and in the global south. So that part of the world that is actually suffering the most from the climate change. And well, actually they are already working on transparent communication to steer away from greenwashing, but they have, I don't know, maybe some issues to reach maybe local communities. And because they have a partnership, for instance, with some associations that actually provide guidelines for transparent communication. I'm thinking of Global Reporting Initiative or something that is most related to climate change, like the Carbon Disclosure Project and the climate-related financial reporting. But they have like a bias. So let's working on transparent communication, but actually how can we simplify our discourses, our reporting, our reports, and to bridge the gap between experts and non-experts. So as Marina said, I also believe in education, and I think that this project is giving me the chance to demonstrate that we as linguists, as humanists, are actually worth in the, I don't know, in science. So my aim is to bridge the gap between humanities, social sciences, and hard sciences, actually.
And if I can also, no idea.
Yeah.
Can I ask something else?
So, yes, sure. I don't know if Serena wanted to just add something about her relationship, the firm she's working with, because.
Yes, just a second. I wasn't. putting on my mic. So basically what I can add, because I totally agree with what Marina, Francesco and Arianna said, is that we kind of pose uncomfortable questions at the moment to companies, just because, in my opinion, I don't want to be that much critical, but maybe they are a little bit short-sighted. I mean, as Marina was saying, we are kind of working for them at the moment, and our objective is not short-term related, meaning that we would like them to produce more authentic and, in my case, multimodal informed analysis that basically match reality and people's or companies' need. Of course, this can work on a long-term relationship, not just on a short-term, because if I halt you in a kind of analysis that you are making and I kind of ask uncomfortable questions, it's just because I would like to go through it again in order to add some insights that maybe were previously unthought of for you as a company. Okay, so I hope that projects like ours will raise the understanding that we are working also for them. Of course, we are doing research, but our research, in a way, is devoted to implementing this ecological digital transition. So basically, it's a win-win situation. We are not going there just to put stupid vetoes. If there's a veto or a critical engagement from my part as a researcher, it's just because I would like, on the long term, for you as a company to flourish, but also for the society to get some sustainable objectives. So that's what I would contribute.
And I don't know if, Antonio, you said you had another question?
Yeah, just a question for Marina, because I'm not sure about the methodology that you are going to adopt for your research, because you have presented your work, but maybe I've missed this part on the methodology that you are going to use and apply. If you can talk about this a little bit more.
Yes, you're right. I didn't mention it maybe because I was caught up in my purpose, you know, in the spreading knowledge purpose. But anyway, yes, basically I intend to adopt a critical discourse analysis as the main methodology, because that's what my main expertise in. And what I'm going to do is to collect all the material, also, like Arianna said, different genres, so different textual material. We have, I don't know, we go from internal regulations, internal corporate regulations, to external communications and external norms, any also procedural handbooks, but also marketing websites and any type of written but also oral communication, because my idea, I mean, I still have to start my research period at Caffè Motta, but my intention is to also follow their work, like their daily work, and to collect also the way they talk to each other, the way they speak about these topics, so that I can understand what's the manipulation, what's the linguistic manipulation of this linguistic material somehow. So after I gather all these I can say a corpus of different texts and different materials, I can process them by means of corpus-assisted analysis, basically. So what I intend to do is to build a corpus and, of course, process it on a corpus analysis software, and see what the recurrent terminology is, what the frequency of certain words, certain terms is, and also from a communicative point of view, how effective communication is. Yes, I'm interested in observing the changes that this language undergoes when it comes from above, in the form of a regulation from above. Yes, so the technical, official, more formal language forms that are going to be used, and then how this is going to be communicated for the customers. and for the stakeholders, because I think I will find some communicative shift in this sense. So this is for my methodology.
So Marina, is it, you know, I'm just wondering about the social cultural context. So what social cultural context are we speaking about?
So Caffè Motta is a young company. So they are the team is composed of young professionals, which I think is the reason for this innovation that they're promoting so much. They also have a blog. So the social context that the language is addressed to, these communications are addressed to, is basically lay people, but maybe a younger target of people. That if this answers your question, if this is what you're asking about.
I was just, you know, since you were speaking about a corpus, I was just wondering about, you know, then if so it's just around Caffè Motta, no? So maybe the social media. Or,
yes, also
so
the social
media.
To
gather, you know, reliable, you know.
Yes, I think this is also going to be an issue, because if you look at different materials, you can see that maybe also the reliability of the information that I will find will possibly vary. But I'm very much interested in the marketing part, so in the social media area, in the blog that Caffè Motta has, because I would like to know. I would like to know how, what are the key points to them? So what are the key points that they are focusing in their sustainability practices? Because I know they are throughout the production process, the production chain. But I think it's even more interesting to look at how sustainability is communicated and perceived for the customers. And that's why I was speaking about a younger target of customers that are, of course, more concerned and more willing to, I mean, younger consumers, they tend to privilege environmentally committed companies. So I think.
Okay, sounds good. What about other questions from the floor? What I think is very interesting is that in your research projects, we've seen, you know, different waves of, you know, very abstract terms, you know, grammatical metaphors such as resilience, transition, you know, gender, inclusion, and so on, and how in your projects then they become concrete. And I hope that, you know, that is my wish, you know, for that to be translated, you know, but for those very abstract terms and slogans and so on, that they will become something very concrete, you know, and it's not just about the discursive representation, but also that, you know, you will help these companies to develop a more responsible approach. So yes.
I do have a question for my colleagues.
Okay.
Maybe for Francesco and Arianna, since you're working with two in the field of corporate discourse. Have you noticed whether the use of Anglicisms is a strategy, a discursive strategy, or a marketing strategy to promote fake or real sustainable products?
Shall I first?
Yes, go.
Okay, not at all, actually, because my work is granted in, you know, company as winemakers in company as winemaking, and you might know that most of the language used in wine tasting notes from company as winemakers is, you know, grounded on promoting Italianness, so the made in Italy. So not at all. And in terms of promoting sustainability practices, well, something I'd like to, of course, I will investigate in this. I haven't so far, but of course I'll do. But I don't think so. It's an intuition actually. So I'm just guessing, but I think it doesn't happen because it is so grounded in territoriality and in Italianness that it's not. I don't think that will try and use, Anglicisms, but who knows?
Yes, I agree with Francesco that even though it's actually something that I haven't been investigating since I'm working just on data produced in English language. So I'm not only looking at Italian texts with Anglicism and so on and so forth, but I think that it could be interesting also for future studies to look at this issue, maybe.
Also, Arianna, you were saying about intercultural communication, the wish to communicate locally, you wanted to introduce this into your research, right?
Yes, absolutely, because corporate and maybe large companies need to communicate in a cross-cultural way, also to expand their image. So many scholars I've been noticing that became interested in intercultural communication because of the expansion of English as the international language, let's say maybe the lingua franca of knowledge and of business. And I think that in order to reach an effective intercultural communication, we there's an echo, I don't know, but I think that we should work on comparative studies to understand convergences and divergences, and to consider sociocultural context, because also in order to simplify discourses and to bridge the gap between experts and non-experts. Usually companies use metaphors, but generally speaking, language and other rhetoric features are grounded in sociocultural context. And for this reason, I think that we as linguists need to work on and support companies in considering also this kind of communication.
Are there any questions from the floor in the meantime? Even students or colleagues, I can see many colleagues are here. Perhaps you've been explained enough. I was just wondering maybe about, we've been speaking about methodology, method and so on. Carmen, could you tell us more about, your method, because I think it's quite complex, and you're dealing with many, you highlighted some methodological issues.
Yeah, well, at the moment, since we are doing this period at the company, the methodological issues, as I was mentioning before, are related to trying to find a match between our multimodal research and how the algorithm works at the moment. Since we have some studies on linguistic, mainly textual studies, so text linguistics, focused on implementing algorithms for AI, whereas what we lack at the moment and what we are trying to kind of understanding and studying is how to complement also the visual, the oral, because all this data should be fed into the learning process of the algorithm, so that the algorithm can understand, can also detect not only textual data, but also other semiotic kind of data. And this is a big constraint at the moment for us. And then, of course, also the fact that depending on the kind of text you are going to analyze, the algorithm changes. Of course, every company has developed their own algorithm. And at the moment, that's why I wanted to focus specifically on the case study we are dealing with digital trails, because this is extremely focused on these texts and on this company. Maybe if I were in another company, I would have interacted with another kind of technical skills. Something I would like to add is that since this is extremely interdisciplinary, we are actually learning something that was totally out of our comfort zone, like such as SEO, PR, digital PR, and so on and so forth, because we need to understand, first of all, what we are doing so that we can produce a reliable outcome. So at the moment, I really think I am into the cross-disciplinary target of this study, and this is quite challenging, I must confess.
Yes, I can see that. And also, well, that's what research is for, no? And you know, so, and also, you know, the crossing of disciplines of, you know, I think that is one of the pluses of this program. You know, to be able to understand the real needs of these companies and be able to work with them. No? It's very different, and it's a challenge. It does, you know, maybe unsettle, you know, our ways of doing things, certainly.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know if there are other questions. Otherwise, yes, Emilio?
Okay, thank you. Thanks to all the speakers actually for their for talking about their projects, all very interesting and complex. And it's been a pleasure listening to your presentations. I actually have questions which is more a curiosity for Francesco. You mentioned in your project you triangulate, right? Language, wine, and ecology. And you mentioned the attention to different words, right? The technical words and the creative parts. As for the talking about lexicon, etc. I actually have sort of two interrelated, questions / curiosities. So one is about the sustainable wines that you mentioned, the difference between the various sustainable wines, and also if you could add something more about, for example, the trending words in the domain of wine. Something that perhaps also is connected with the issue of Italianness, right? The English language Italian.
Yes, of course. So I'll start from this second point. So the definitely one of the most trending words in the world of wine is minerality, which lies actually at the boundaries between the creative, dimension and the technical one. Because some experts, wine tasters, assume that minerality denotes the features, the characteristics of the soil that they claim they can perceive when tasting the wine. But to be honest, it has been demonstrated by scholars in the field of chemistry and others, taste and things like this, that it is pretty possible to taste the soil in the wine. But they keep on using this word, and there's an anecdote from one expert who said that during his courses, wine tasting language, he used to repeat this word when he didn't know what to say. So it is this minerality, this wine is mineral, because he didn't know what to say. So it it filled the gap of knowledge, and it was a trendy word to use. And with reference to your first question, so yes, there are three main sustainable wine types that have emerged and are widespread wine types, which are the organic wines, which are regulated by the European Union. So there's a product specification. But as I said, there are no measurements on the final product, only on the grape. So you are not allowed to use fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides on the grapes, but there are no restrictions, few restrictions on the final product. You can add up to 40 additives, sulfites, and what's more is that on wine labels, you're not obliged to put the ingredients. So I don't know if you know about this. So wine is not considered a drinking product. Okay, so you're not obliged to put the ingredients on the label, which is kind of, it's misleading sometimes because you don't know. I don't know if you're a vegan, for example, you might not know that there's an animal-derived product in it. Then there are biodynamic wines. I'm not an expert actually, but as far as I know, biodynamic wines are produced by respecting moon cycles and using homeopathic preparations. But still, you can use additives in those wines. And finally, the natural wines, as I said, are the healthiest of all, and they only use traditional methods. But according to some, they are also the most flowed ones with many flows, because there are no additives to correct the taste and to homologate the taste. But natural wines are also the reason why some winemakers, as I said, are outraged, because of these regulations at the European level, which do not consider natural wines. And I hope this answers your questions.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I don't know. There are other questions or otherwise, I think it's been a wonderful wonderful presentation. All these projects that are so inspiring, really, and I think that they will bring a lot of good research and impact, and hope that you in 2 or 3 years will be able to tell us more about it, how it actually went. We are in uncharted territories, we should say. It's all very new, and yes, so I hope you will be able to actually fulfill all these aims, but even if it will be difficult, for certain, I think your contribution as critical thinkers, as and as humanities scholars, linguistic scholars, will be great, and will give a great contribution. I think the only thing is it's important to actually not forget who we are and what we're doing, and yes, and continue to sort of, be critical in a way that is constructive, as Serena also pointed out, something that is constructive and can obviously not, critical in the sense of polemic or, but, constructive. Okay, so I will maybe close the session if there are not any questions, and I would like to thank you all. This was, I think, a great session, and yes, I don't know, Emilia, if you want to close it, since it's our last seminar for
yes. Thank you very much, Katherine. Thank you for hosting this this wonderful seminar. Thank you to all our co-hosts and speakers, Francesco Nacchia, Arianna del Gaudio, Marina Niceforo, and Carmen Santonocito. It's been a real pleasure. And well, unfortunately, this is our last seminar for for the semester, but we will start again, next semester. So, look out for news about the next seminar. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you again, Katherine, for hosting, and see you all. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.